Hello everyone. This is the first tutorial video of JavaScript. I hope you already saw my HTML and CSS courses, and I'm going to give you an introduction about what is JavaScript, how JavaScript work, about variables, operators, and others, what JavaScript does on the web page, the browser security, the order the code is read, interpreted language like JavaScript vs compiled languages like C, C++, server side vs client and client side, dynamic code and static code, how to add a JavaScript to our page, and strategies to load the content, and last the comments. Okay, first I took a picture of JavaScript that I think is explanatory. It gives a brief explanation using the human body. In fact, we use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript all together to create the famous front end of our web page. And HTML, we already saw, is the bone of the skeleton of our web page, in the meaning that it's really the layout. It creates how is the basic structure, the paragraphs, if there is a box, if there isn't a box, a table, not a table, etc., etc. But without CSS is only a skeleton, a gray skeleton. No, CSS adds color and styling to our HTML so that it becomes beautiful and so human appealing. No. Last, there is JavaScript, which here is given like the brain. Actually, I wouldn't say the brain because the brain would be the back end, no? But it gives an idea, no, that the page with the JavaScript become dynamic, and it becomes really capable of doing something if there is an interaction with the user. So the user interaction is handled by JavaScript. Now let's not talk too much, but see something. I created a P, which actually I took it from the Mozilla developer Mozilla documentation, and here there is a little JavaScript code. If I open the browser, there is only this button. And let's see the code. The code is saying, I talk it briefly, of course. We will talk of each of these features in details. So take the element P, and so is taking the P element, which in my case is player 1 Matthew, and to that P add an event on click, and on the event, so once I click, trigger the function change name. And then I specify the function, which is change name, and is saying create a variable, which is I declare a variable, which is prompt, and you already know prompt gives an input. So ask for an input, and the input says enter a name. You can enter a name, and then it says the content of the paragraph is player 1 plus name that you have written. Okay, that's too much things, of course. Anyway, let's just see how it works. I have this button. I press the button. It says enter a name. I enter a name, and the name has changed. I want to enter another name. and the name is changed. Is quite simple not to understand. So okay, this is the basic things. Now we're going into detail stuff. As we said, with the JavaScript, we can do perform various operations like assigning variables, like let the name in this case, perform operations like mathematical operations, trigger events like this paragraph add event handler, and other things. One beautiful thing about JavaScript is that on JavaScript, on top of JavaScript, they have built APIs, which stands for Application Programming Interface, and an API can embed into your browser, into your page, data from other sources. For example, you could embed a Google Map, or you could embed Telegram, or Facebook, YouTube videos, or other things. And this is one of the good things of JavaScript. But we have to talk about also the security of the browsers, because there are even bad things, of course. Security means that our browser cannot, for example, we have two pages opened, and we have two pages opened. If the security of this page, if the code that is laid inside this page is not compartmentalized through this compared to this one. Now I'm just searching random things. One malicious actor could from this page could triggers generate codes that will run on this page, and so he could really browse, surf the internet from our pages, and retrieves our sensitive informations. So yes, there is also a security concern with JavaScript, like with many things. What is the code? The order, the code is read. The order is from top to bottom, like in almost every programming languages. For sure, CSS is the same, and even HTML. What does it mean? Simply, now we have run this page. If, for example, I take this piece of code that is triggering an event on the paragraph, and I place it before I initialize paragraph. Now I launch the page. As you can see here, there is an error. Cannot access paragraph before initialization. Blah 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 blah. And yes, the reason is that there is an order that is from top to bottom that has to be respected. So you cannot initialize, you cannot render a function before initialize its variable. So one of the rules. Then what is the difference between interpreted language vs and compiled language? This is an interpreted language. What does it mean?
that this we write these things, and then these things are passed as they are written on the machine that will read these things as they are. Compile the language are are written like what how we write it. Then the code will be compiled to a machine to another code that is readable from for the machine, and then the machine will um, render the page or do what the code says. And an example is, of course, the C programming language or C++, but we won't talk about it. The only thing I say is that compiled languages are faster, and so where are faster and it takes less resources, but now the computers are enough powerful to use interpreted languages as well. This doesn't mean that nobody that C and C++ are outdated. They exist and they are used. Anyway, this is about interpreted and compiled language. What is the difference between server side and client side? So server side, okay, let's start. I show you this from the page. If you go on any page and you go on network inside your console and you load it, you can see that I do it again, that a lot of different things gets loaded on your browser. Of course, even JavaScript, and of course, even CSS for sure. I don't know why it's not showed. Anyway, the point here is that these things are happening on your client, on your browser. So the web page loads things into your browser. Um, but not everything happens on your client side, of course, because, for example, on a login session, taking the example of Google, of Facebook, if have all the session of the login would happen on your client side, would be, of course, everyone could retrieve the information of everyone. But of course, once you make your request through the login, your request goes to the server, which will then give you a response, and you will only your browser will only load the response, but all the things that has happened to authenticate you has happened on the server side. So this is the difference between client side and server side. Of course, there are programming languages for one and for the other. Client side we have seen is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Server side is Java, is Python, is PHP, and paradoxically, now JavaScript has become somehow you can use JavaScript on server side. It's been 10 years that Node.js, which is a framework, has been created, um, and um, can allow you to use JavaScript as server side. And of course, there will be a lot to talk about, but this is not the right moment. What is the difference between dynamic pages and static pages? I didn't really know which pages to take as an example. Uh, anyway, this one could appear to be a static page, even if it's not. I mean, the purpose of this page is just to show you a tutorial, no? So let's assume that it's static because it only has the paragraphs and some images. And so this page is not changing over time. It will always remain the same. And the user input cannot change the page. Um, and the only thing that can really change the page is actually the developer going into the code and changes what it's written inside. This is the meaning of a static page. A dynamic page, I took eToro, but I don't even know where to go. The point is, eToro, like many other pages, which has a different scope, no? Just a different goal rather than this Mozilla developer that is making tutorials of developing. Um, is showing in real time the data of cryptocurrencies, and this is interesting because over time the content of the pages is changing. Um, this is changing over time. Or for example, in Facebook, the page changes on the user input. So what is happening here is a dynamic feature that is being implemented into the page. So and this is the meaning of a dynamic page. When, for example, I want to give an example, when the page keeps changing over time, even if you are not reloading, no, the page, which is possible. The page is not reloading, and so but the content is being updated, um, even without another HTTP request, is using Ajax calls. This is not really important. Just to tell you that the dynamic features are involved and implemented into the code in many different ways, and of course it becomes more, let's say, interesting or complicated than a static code. Moving on, let's talk about something a little more practical, how to add JavaScript to our page. There are three kind of ways: internal, external, inline. So internally, you can write your JavaScript or in the head, or in the head, or in the at the bottom of the body. The only problem is that if you place your code here, it will get called from the moment that our code is is read top to bottom. It will be read before the HTML is loaded, and probably this will trigger errors because, for example, now uh, we have an event listener on a paragraph that does not exist yet because we didn't create it. It didn't load the paragraph into the DOM. So the best choice, to be frank, is just to place your code on the bottom of body, so you are sure that that um, it will be triggered, that will be read after everything else has been loaded. Then, of course, you can create, you can import a code from external sources, like we did with CSS. You can just source file JS. There isn't, but there could be. And then in this file, you create the code, and then you use the code. Completely possible. Last thing is inline JavaScript. Okay, that is for example, I create an on-click event that triggers a function that I call ciao, that I call hello, sorry. and then I create that function. Let hello. There is another way to create it, that doesn't matter. No, before I need to but I do like this. For example, I create this function that is doing um, alert hello. Okay, very simple. There are other ways to call functional. I don't want to talk about it. We will talk about it in the future. So now if I come here and I type this, it comes hello on the screen. This is for is possible, people does it, but is like a beginner mode, because you can even use event listeners to do the same thing, and this will not if you place on click on this paragraph, then you will have problems on a larger scale, because then you have to change you have this hello function, you have created it, and then maybe you have to change all the for all the paragraphs you have to make changes, because you didn't you used the inline properties, when it was better to use to use query selector, or other use event listeners to do the same stuff. But for now, of course, it would be even good that you understand what I'm saying. So very nice. Then strategies to load the content. We already said that that we can place our JavaScript script on the top of the head, but it is not really good. On the top bottom of the script, it never really causes problem. Anyway, there is a way to give another layer of security, of not a layer of security, another check that everything will work fine. I wrote this. As you can see, saying document add event listener. Um, Document add event listener, DOM content loaded, which is an event. Once all the DOM, all our document is loaded, you are going to trigger the function. So now you write blah blah blah. For example, if I now I write here alert, um, alert. Hello, vabbè, doesn't matter. Cioè, once DOM is completely created, voilà, cioè, vabbè, voilà. Okay, just to say that there is this possibility to add another check. You can or can't, or you can even not use it. Anyway, it's just a line of code, so there is not much effort for this. Async and defer are two other things that does the same or similar things. And there is a difference between async and defer, and we're going to see it. I created these three scripts that are going to be loaded. I put it on the head and are going to be loaded so immediately, unless I write defer, for example. And if I write defer on everyone, it's the fare force them to be loaded only after everything else has been loaded. So you don't have problems with the fact that the element of the HTML of the DOM is not loaded because there is the fare, one first thing. And secondary, the fare is in order. So since this one is written before this one, this, sorry, this one will be loaded before this one and before this one, and then before this one, then this one, and then this one, because this is the fare. If I write async is different, because async will just say, okay, the first one that is loaded, the first element that is loaded will get immediately added on the page. So this one it takes 1 millisecond. This is takes 2 milliseconds. Immediately after this is ready, it will get uploaded on the page, and then this one, and then this one. The problem with async is that if these two, for example, if these three scripts are dependent with each other, so you need this script to be loaded before this. If you use async, you might get into an error. With the fare, you don't have errors because this one they will follow an order. You can even, of course, do like this, because maybe you have these two scripts, they are interdependent. So you assure that this will be loaded before this one. Then this one is not dependent, they does something else that is not related with what this does. So you're just using async to speed up your pace, and once this is ready, it gets it gets uploaded, it gets created immediately. Okay, this is async and defer. We have comments. We already, I think, you already know a little about Visual Studio, but maybe this is the first time you see my videos. So if you want to comment on a single line, you use double slashes. And if you want to comment multiple, so on multiple lines, you use slash slash star, and star slash, no, sorry, don't even know. Anyway, the shortcut that you will use is just you take this and then you use Control KU, and the code gets commented. As simple as this. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this first video. I don't know if you just saw this is the first video you see of my series of videos. If so, it will be quite overwhelming, because I intended to explain JavaScript after HTML and CSS. But don't worry, if you already know some programming languages or see my previous videos, you will see that it's very easy to learn and quite straightforward to do. I will upload other videos, and so see you again for the next one. Thank you very much.